So tonight on the program, we continue our review of the government's performance in the year 2019, the promises made and the reality on ground, as they say. Well, the legislative arm of government is our focus tonight. It is meant to be the vital part of democracy, which seeks to give everyone a voice, a representation at the decision table. Well, in this case, you can call it the decision chambers. It's been a long journey for Nigeria from the very first parliament in 1960 to this 9th assembly in 2019. So let's take you through some of the key moments in the 9th assembly so far. Right, that's right, let's give you some highlights. Now, the 9th assembly was inaugurated on June the 11th, 2019. And just a few weeks after, we had the ministerial nominee screening July the 24th to July the 30th. That was perhaps one of the biggest assignments for the 9th Assembly. And then the standing committee's announcement, it was July the 25th for the House of Representatives and July the 30th for the Senate. Just at that moment, the National Assembly went on its annual recess for 8 weeks from July the 30th to September the 24th. Fast forward to a few weeks after, we got into another major assignment, budget consideration and passage. This spanned from October the 8th to December the 5th. And now, where we are right now is that plenary has been adjourned till January the 20th, 2020. Now, aside those major highlights, we also have some of the bills and requests which were considered by the National Assembly. You see the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, a major one, passed second reading. A lot of people are watching that. You see the National Commission for the Prohibition of Hate Speech Bill, which people know as the Hate Speech Bill, that passed the first reading. It's been a major issue for contention. And another one, the Protection from Internet Falsehood and Manipulation Bill 2019, which people call the Social Media Bill, see, passed second reading. Also, another major one, which came with the Appropriation Bill, is a Finance Bill, which has been passed, and a request which was sent by the President to the $30 billion external borrowing plan. Now, these are some of the major issues that have been considered at the 9th Assembly. But then there are other issues of representation, the executive-legislature relationship. We have, the controversies that came up, like the 37 billion naira renovation debate and much more. So let's get into the discussion tonight. And we have to do this with us, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. He's a chairman, House Committee on Media and Publicity. Good evening, and thank you for joining us, Honorable Kalu.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and viewers, thank you for tuning in.
Right. And joining us via Skype is Ms. Idayat Hassan. She's the Executive Director for Center for Democracy and Development. She joins us via Skype from the United Kingdom. Good evening, and thank you for joining us also.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let me begin with you, Ms. Hassan. From the activities of the 9th Assembly this past 6 months, which you have seen since its inauguration, how would you rate the legislature's performance in improving Nigeria's democracy so far?
I think top of the achievement which we should give to them so far has been the speedy passage of the budget, irrespective of misgivings we might have. But I think that is commendable, that for the first time in quite a long time, we are going to start a new fiscal year come January 1, where it used to be those days. So I think kudos to them, and in particular for the House of Representatives coming up to say that there will be electronic voting when issues of national interest will be debated on the House. So when you take all those together, you see that at least give or take with some positive steps are being taken, really.
Right. Now, let's go to Honorable Kalu. You have listened to Ms. Hassan, who thinks, for her, you have done a great job. But let's talk about, some of the bills that have been passed so far. If you could, can you give us a figure, perhaps, the bills that have been considered so far, the ones that have been passed so far by the 9th Assembly? I'm sure a lot of Nigerians would want to know. Let's begin there.
Thank you very much. At the moment, we've experienced 631 bills that has gone through the House of Representatives. Like I speak for the House of Representatives, not the Senate. And out of these 631 bills, some of them have gone through first reading, some second reading, some at the committee level, and some of them have gone through third reading. And just like you mentioned during your analysis, some key bills like the finance bill is now an act, has been assented to, as well as the deep offshore sharing formula bill, which has been made also an act. And you know, these two bills, which became an act, will help Nigeria in, increasing their revenue sources. We also have other important bills that we have handled, like the Public Procurement Act, which we are looking into for amendment. And the Speaker also introduced two fundamental bills. One is the bill that has to do with the discourse. You know, Nigerians are complaining about what is going on at the moment, where they get estimated billing, which the House considered as an act of fraud, because you can charge people for what they did not consume at the end of the day. So that bill is seeking to criminalize the act of giving estimated billing. Another one is a bill.
Bills. For a moment, we'll still come to some of these bills in particular, because there are some of them that are in contention. But I'd like us to look at another issue, which is the talk about the relationship between the legislature and the executive. I remember when the Ninth Assembly was about to kick in, there was a term flying around, rubber stamp legislature, and it went on and on. Now, come to today, people are seeing what's happening in the United States with the House holding the president to account. And they're asking, is it something that can also happen in Nigeria? So for the Ninth Assembly, would you say you're empowered enough to hold the executive to account, to act as the checkmate, which you should be?
We are well empowered. The position of the Constitution is very clear with regards to this. Section 88 and Section 89 of the Constitution is very clear, with the mandate given to us to carry out our functions with regards to playing the watchdog role, which is oversighting the executive. So definitely we are empowered. There is no other instrument of law that has the capacity to empower the legislative arm better than the Constitution. So we have the constitutional mandate in these two provisions that I mentioned to you, and so we are very empowered. And you know, we hear this rubber stamping trending around, and we laugh over it when we hear it, because if you had listened to the presentation of Mr. President when he was assenting to the bill, you will notice that we did not take what was presented to us hook, line, sinker. And it was increased, the budget was increased, and he made a reference to that and said, I submitted this amount, and this is the amount you brought back. We'll see what we'll do about that. So, which means when the budget came to us, we did a critical analysis of it, and we removed the ones we're supposed to remove. We increased where needed to be increased and all that. So the issue of rubber stamping is not that. But you see, over time, Nigerians have come to believe that the efficiency of the legislative arm is measured in the amount of acrimony and rancor that is generated between the two arms of government. But we decided to demystify that and say, yes, in the name of oversighting, we should not increase rancor. It doesn't mean that we should fight. What Nigerians are interested in is how much we are able to identify, interpret the needs of Nigerians and provide solutions. Because the legislative arm, the legislative house, is a solution house. It's where you come to solve problems. So if we understand...
Let's quickly go over to Ms. Hassan to get her response on this talk about relationship between the executive and the legislature. Ms. Hassan, do you think the Ninth Assembly, as it is right now, is really empowered and able to act as the checkmate which it will be for the executive, seeing what we're seeing playing out in the United States, for example?
I think like they are empowered constitutionally to do to carry out their responsibilities, but the onus now lies on them to actually do that. There is the notion of separation of power does not necessarily mean that people should be fighting, but they should be the watchdog who they really are meant to be. And I do not subscribe to the argument of the representatives speaking on the other side and saying that because they were able to increase the budget, it means that they actually scrutinized it properly. That is incorrect. And there are several aspects of those budgets which Nigerians do not really agree to. But beyond that itself, this is the assembly that did not even allow journalists to be part of the defense hearings by the MDAs and even civil society. That was a first in itself. And I wonder what they are even trying to prevent us from knowing, really. Secondly, also, when there are issues of national importance, it is not always carried out the way it is expected. So, they just concluded elections in Kogi, and Bayelsa is an example. Why talk of a committee that will not mention names, really? Why would you want to look into issues without appropriating outrightly who is at fault, whose responsibility it is, and calling out names? That's just second. Another critical issue that we again have to look at when we talk in terms of how well synergized or representative this night assembly really is the way issues have always been dealt with. When there are issues of national importance, again, I want to go back to issues of national importance. Even when you talk of electoral act, for instance, there should be a joint committee, but see that there is no fusion of perception is real.
Right. Ms. Hassan, for a moment, would want to take a break right now. We'll need to take a break. I understand we're having issues with the connection, but we have to take a break right now. When we come back, I'll get Honorable Kalu to respond to some of the issues you have raised, which are valid. And we'll also talk about proper representation. We'll talk about the 37 billion naira renovation and some other issues. Do join us again. Well, the Ninth Assembly is our focus tonight. And let's get back to the conversation. We'll still have Honorable Benjamin Kalu, the Chairman, House Committee on Media and Publicity. He joins us from our Abuja studio, as well as Ms. Idayat Hassan. She's the Executive Director, Center for Democracy and Development. She joins us via Skype from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for your patience. Now, Honorable Kalu, I'd like you to respond to some of the issues which she raised before the break. She talked about the budget defense, for example, saying that, journalists and civil society organizations were barred from the budget defense. And for her, that is not a good way forward. So how would you respond to that?
Thank you very much. I'm not sure that the lady was around during the budget defense. I am the chairman of Media and Public Affairs, and I have a team of press corps that report to me on a daily basis, and also who have access to all our interaction with the MDAs. You see, there is never going to be a time when a budget will be totally acceptable to every Dick, Tom, and Harry in this country or in any other country. The most important question one should ask at all times is, does the budget attend to the needs, the yearning of the people, especially in the now? And the answer is yes, because if we don't have time to go through the fundamentals in the budget. If I have the time, I will explain to you why we believe that a good job was done on the budget, that the speed with which we discharge our responsibility should not be seen as, not being very diligent in going through the line. It is casting aspersion on the integrity of the House of Representatives as well as the Senate if one concludes that a good job was not done on that document, because most of the heads of those MDAs came 2 or 3 times before their documents were approved before us. Going forward on the issue of the journalists, you see, in parliamentary practice, there is what we call the executive time when we go into executive moment. Everybody goes out, we sit down to discuss. You are not allowed to be, if you're not a parliamentarian, you're not allowed to be inside that room at that particular time. So if it is public hearing, everybody's invited.
Right.
The cameras are there. I have all the clips of all the public hearings. And so to say that people were not given access to the rooms when the MDAs came for defense is actually not true.
Okay, Honorable Kalu, just while you were talking, Ms. Hassan actually chuckled, and I'd like to get her response. Now, Honorable Kalu says he doubts that you were at that defense. So is that true?
But I made comments, and I was in Nigeria during that defense review. Being here doesn't mean that I'm not actually on ground. And it's also important that the excuse given, which I commented to several newspapers during that period, was that if they allow people to come in, they will actually be distracted during the budget defense. And I'm sure it was even Senator Adeyeye who responded on behalf of the Senate. And that's actually a new. They even went as far as saying maybe when they reach the first pleading, then people can actually leave. I think that's a new. A public hearing allows people to come. We were there from CDD. As coalition of civil society, we all met to participate at the public hearing. But at every point in time, exclusion has been a part of the Ninth National Assembly. And that goes to the social media bill itself as an example, and the hate speech bill, which is all being touted as new legislation.
Right. So let's move to another major issue which was prominent during this past few months for the National Assembly. And this is for Honorable Kalu. It's the 37 billion naira renovation amount. I'm sure you've seen the controversy that has trailed this announcement. And for a lot of Nigerians, I'd like to hear from you. What is your take on it, first of all? And seeing the reaction, the controversy that has trailed this, is this something the National Assembly will still want to go forward with, or would you want to review this? I'd like you to respond, Honorable Kalu.
Yes, I wonder why Nigerians always scream when it has to do with National Assembly and finance. It bothers people like us a lot. I was on the other side not too long ago. I was part of the executive. And what I thought was different when I got into the legislative arm. They don't have money to function. This is the truth. I want to start from there. You want them to oversight 10.6 trillion with a budget that is less than 2%. And you expect them to do an efficient job? Oversight means monitoring how the implementation is carried, that no money is wasted anywhere. Section 88 and 89 of the Constitution mention that one of our mandates is to expose corruption, expose waste, expose inefficiency. And to do this, you need to be around. You need to monitor. You need to move around. And it takes money to do this. And when people hear that the amount of 120-something billion, which was appropriated some 10 years ago and has remained within that budget bracket, is still the same amount of money 10, 15 years after, when dollar has increased from 180 to 360, and the value of the amount is now half what it used to be. I laugh when people scream.
Honorable
when people
Kalu,
forget that the National
say,
Assembly is not just made up of...
renovation is different.
Allow me...
Right, please go ahead.
I have to give you this background before the renovation, please, because it has to do with finances. Okay? Because we need to understand this, that the National Assembly is sitting on tripod stand, which is the Senate, the House of Representatives, as well as the management. And the money that is always appropriated to National Assembly goes to these three, the tripod stand I just mentioned to you, with a lot of other agencies under it.
Okay,
so
Honorable Kalu, I wish we could go on about this, but I need to get Ms. Hassan to respond because of our time. I was really hoping you'll deal with that renovation issue. But Ms. Hassan, on a final note, because we need to go, what is your take on this? And I mean, moving into the new year, I'm sure you see some areas which you'd like the legislature, especially the Ninth Assembly, to improve upon. So what would it be?
I think it has to be with transparency, financial transparency in particular, because when you look at why the perception of the National Assembly is low in the eyes of Nigeria, it's premised on this belief that they spend so much money, there is so much corruption, there is no value for the work that they are doing. So they have to actually deal openly with us, and transparency too. And in fact, they should forget the idea of that renovation for that humongous amount of money and use it to better the lives of Nigerians.
Right. I know this is an ongoing conversation, and I understand that Honorable Kalu would still like to shed more light on this. But we'll definitely keep this conversation going. But so far, I'd like to thank you so much, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. He is the Chairman, House Committee on Media and Publicity. Thank you so much for your time tonight on the program, as well as Ms. Idayat Hassan. She's Executive Director, Center for Democracy and Development. She joins us via Skype from the United Kingdom. Well, that's our show for tonight, but you can always rewatch this on YouTube at Channels Television. That's our channel, and you can subscribe, definitely, to get access to all the amazing content you see on your screen, and even much more, right? Well, thank you so much for watching this episode. I am Kayode Okikiolu. To have a great weekend ahead.